So today started kind of backwards, didn't it?
Yeah, no, like everything collapsed. Like I have this great Thursday arranged. It follows a process. Everything works the way it should. I go have a massage. I come home. On the way home, I swing by Timmy's. I grab a tea or coffee. I come home, grab a bite to eat, sit down. We have a wonderful conversation. And then I go off and play golf. Right? It's my Thursday. It's about me. And then guess what happens, right? My massage therapist dares being 10 minutes late.
Oh, oh,
So that pushes okay, that's just a little bit of, influence into the comfy time, but that's okay. We can
okay.
accept that. Oh no, today's the day you need to rip up the road that I use to get home that the Tim Hortons is on. Right? I didn't see this coming in because I don't stop at Tim Hortons on the way in. So I get on this road and it's like, is really today's the day when I'm behind in the schedule. So I'm supposed to join you at a certain time. And that time is rolling by as I'm reading off my order into the Tim Hortons speaker because I'm a happily married man. The option of coming home without a tea is not on the table. Like that's just not an option for me. So I'm stopping, doesn't matter how far my schedule's out of whack. I'm stopping to get the tea because I like life. Right? I like life. I like happiness and joy around me. So yeah, and then that's the day they rip up the one road and of course traffic is jammed and yeah. Yeah, and then you're just like, okay, is there anything else? Now I'm almost concerned about going to golf today.
Sounds like the constellations are against you. There seems to be the universe is out of whack.
I don't know whether how big or important the power is, but it seems to be somebody's playing in my sandbox today and they're not playing nice.
We as you were talking, of course, I'm laughing. Just before we started, I got hit with an allergy attack. My entire sinuses, well, my sinuses feel like cotton is growing. Not just it's been
Yep.
harvested or processed, it's now cropped. There are crops out, and I'm looking at myself in this tiny little camera up there. And I'm saying to myself, can he see my eyes bleeding? It's just, and it's one of those, again, as we said earlier, as I said earlier, there are situations that we think we can control that do go out of whack. And then there are situations where we have zero control, and that's it. You just live under the umbrella, under the dark cloud that is raining on you and throwing lightning bolts on you or at you. It's the old Al Cap character in his cartoon Little Abner, of the little guy who used to run around with a cloud over his head all the time, and you couldn't even pronounce his name because it was written in New York Polish, so it was all Z's and Q's and whatevers. And he was a stock character that there was nothing that would ever go right in his life. Period. That's it.
Yep.
And there are days when we sit back and we look at ourselves and we go, I'm not sure I'm getting out of bed. I'm not
Yeah.
sure it's worth it. Just
Are,
like,
are you running around your house and you just get a glimpse of your bed that you left 5 hours ago and you're like, I'm done. Like I'm just shutting
yeah,
her down
yeah,
now and I'm
yeah, yeah,
walking into that
yeah,
room
yeah,
and
yeah,
we're gonna try again tomorrow.
yeah. The week started off kind of off the wall. Well, strange is a nice way of putting it. Off the wall is a more graphic way of putting it. And I leave the house to go to the office at 6 o'clock in the morning. I do that intentionally because I don't like to be in crowded subways and buses and so on and so forth. And you do get crowds, but they're usually the people who've worked in the underground overnight and they're on their way home. So, but that's a different issue. And I often, well, the regular schedule is to go in on Tuesdays. This week, I decided to go in on Monday because I had a meeting with somebody that included lunch and so on and so forth. Now, think about it. The beginning of the week, the weekend is over. Everybody is gearing up to go to work. Okay. I use public transit. I get on the subway with 2-minute walk from my house, and it is about 6:05. Subway service starts at 6 o'clock. Ready for this? By the time I got to the station waiting for my train, the entire east line from St. George all the way to Warden, which is the almost 99.9% of the entire line, is no longer functioning. It just stopped. We're talking, I go west, so I'm standing there going, I feel sorry for the 4 million, and I'm exaggerating, but the thousands of people who have to get to work on the east side of Toronto, who now have to take buses because the entire line is going to be down as far as TTC is concerned the entire day. And what was it? Mechanical difficulties. You go, whoa, wait a minute. You shut down at night in order to deal with mechanical issues. You start at 6 o'clock, and at 6:10, you have mechanical difficulties.
Yep.
And okay, unexpected. You can't necessarily blame the corporation, although we could. And you could say the system sucks to begin with. It does. But at the same time, what do you do on Monday morning as the week begins? And that is what you have to face. And these are people who must be at work at a specific time.
Oh, yeah.
Me, I show up the office. I have my routine. I go and do this and I do that. There's nobody else there. Hey, I'm free to do it anything I damn well please. But Monday, Thursday, today was your day when the constellations were out of whack. Monday was my day. We didn't start with the TTC not working. Then my usual place where I buy my donuts, they decided not to open up, period. In the process of looking in their front window, trying to figure out what they were doing, they were in there. They just decided not to open up.
How did you start without your scones?
Well, that's the whole point. I was going, okay, I think I could get through this.
I don't know what to do now.
Yeah. Well, I missed my bus.
Yep.
And the bus is on a new route, and now it takes a minimum of 20 to 25 minutes between buses before they arrive. I'm going, okay, that's strike 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
I get to the office and I'm desperate for coffee, and I'm going, if anybody crosses me right now, they're dead.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. They're going to see a side of Victor that does not normally come out.
Well, actually, it comes out more frequently now that I'm getting older than it used to, because, without too much of a strain, old people who commit murder and don't spend that much time in jail.
No, not at all.
We die.
The fuse is the shorter too, right? Because we don't have time to waste.
Yes, and that in itself is ironic. The older I get, the shorter the fuse around time. And I go, whoa, wait a minute.
Stop. Yeah.
Stop. You've got more time than you actually need. Okay.
Hey, well, time-wise is another great story. So I part-time teach at a university. Mm-hmm. And so I got an offer to teach a course this fall with somebody else. However, one of the weeks I can't teach because my company is both sponsoring and supporting a conference in Banff. I love Banff, going to Banff. I'm not going to be available to teach, right? So I want to make an adjustment to the course.
Mhm.
The faculty says no, and for very good reasons. I'm not arguing the faculty did. The hoops and the volume of emails and the crazy suggestions on how to ameliorate this situation over the past couple of days has me bewildered. And I don't, I want to be very careful because I want to keep working at the institution. But the point
Yes.
is, like,
Yes. Yeah.
it's if this can't happen, I need to move on and
Yeah.
not teach, and you need to find an alternate instructor. But when you have casual instructors and contract instructors who've taught the course before, every lecture now has to be re-recorded.
Oh,
Right? Because it's my face,
yes.
my PowerPoint.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Harder to sell to the next person.
Yes.
So it's been what are the methodologies we could try to use to salvage
Yes.
and get somebody to step in for the short period of time that I'm not available, happy to cover the rest of the course. So it's the easy solution is right in front of you. And this is part of me and a transition. If you ever want a prime example of transitioning out of the military from one organizational structure to another, timing is a perfect thing, right? My day in the Army, I got told to do things I didn't want to do at inconvenient times, and nobody was asking permission to place this in my calendar. And while I was angry about it, and I was quite openly PO'd about it, when I showed up, of course, it was the most professional delivery of services as expected.
Exactly.
Okay? That was the world I spent decades in. Academia doesn't work like that.
No.
They don't look at a tenured professor and said, Tuesday in 2 months in this, you're teaching this course. I don't care what's on your calendar. You give it and you're going to nail it and walk away. That kind of discussion doesn't happen. And so it's part of that timing thing, because as you get older, what are we supposed to do? What is the ideal frame? We're supposed to free up more and more of our time.
Right.
Right. And I don't know if you've ever read the book. What's it? I'm going to forget it. It's by Greg McEwen, and not externalism. Anyhow, it's a book about how if an opportunity lands in your lap, unless it's an absolute jump out of your chair, pump your fist in your air, hell yes, the answer must be no. And so I've summarily violated that rule several times this week. And I'm looking at it now going, well, I gave my commitment to help out, so I'm not going to pull out. That's not what I do. But now I'm realizing that this time management thing of I'm in control of my calendar. And if my calendar is not working, it's not somebody else's fault. I'm the guy that said that this was an appropriate use of time and that this would be fine. And so I'm like, it was funny. It was funny.
It raises multiple issues around, structure, around commitment, around trust. There are all kinds of words we could throw out there to analyze, diagnose, or whatever, talk about. And there's also the factor of want and desire. Okay, there are things we want to do. There are things that we have a desire for. There are things that that once we accept, just to use your situation, once we accept, there's also that dimension of responsibility and responsibility is one of those really difficult things, because bluntly, just if you were to think totally bluntly about this, you would say, sorry, thank you, I made a commitment, but I'm out of here. All right, leave me alone. Go find somebody else. However, once we make a commitment, we actually think long and hard about walking away. Now, I don't know whether that's because we're more mature, I hate that phrase, or because we're rational people, or because despite our criticism of structures and the control factors involved that we can't mitigate or overcome, we nonetheless like to look at ourselves in the mirror because we want to be trusted. And that requires responsibility.
Mhm.
It's something that sparked me when I was actually looking at some of your podcasts on trustworthy sources of information. I mean, we all know, I mean, it's almost a cliche to say we live in strange times. Come on. I mean,
That's the easy
yeah,
excuse.
that's the easy, way of saying it.
Yeah.
But I mean, quite bluntly, I would suspect at no time in human history were they not strange. You're in a context, you're dealing with all kinds of issues, and not the least being yourself and your own issues. Psychologists would say that we're nothing more than what can be seen. And no, they wouldn't say that. What can be seen is our behavior, how we act. What can't be seen is what goes on in our heads that motivate us to act. And so that's the private side of our lives. The public side of our lives is what we do, how we act, how we behave, which opens up some pretty complex issues because how we think and how we motivate ourselves and how we are motivated is a very complex issue. It's not the I thought, therefore I am. Thank you very much. It isn't quite that way because I thought is a very, very complex nexus of I don't know, factors. So that's a nice way of putting it, because there are the knowns and the unknowns, the controllable and the uncontrollable. We can control our thoughts insofar as we can control our behavior, but then we also have thoughts that are not necessarily controlled. And what do we mean by control when it comes to our thoughts? I mean, we generate our own thoughts. Somebody else is not thinking for us. So, and that in itself is a level of complexity that leads us to raise questions about what is trust and what is trustworthy. We're bombarded, as my tongue swells up, my allergy, we're bombarded by information. Some would say too much information, and what is it that we trust, and why, how? I'm not sure. There are multiple considerations around this. What constitutes the trust that we might or might not place in information we receive, given the unknown sources often enough of what that information is?
It's very, very interesting, because framing it in what I do in emergency preparedness communications, which is quite topical right now in Canada in various locations.
Yes, I know.
I'm very much interested in answering the question, or portions of the question, as to what are the motives and the rationale for people to choose or not to choose to receive information. And then what factors are more likely to influence positive outcomes to people adopting the message. So if I have what I believe to be an important public message, what are the factors that influence the population's decision to A, listen to it, B, think about it, consider it in whatever frame they have, and then C, potentially act in the, or as I like to phrase it, adopt the behaviors that I want them to adopt as a
Right.
result of the message. And the literature is miles deep on this. We've been studying communication in depth since the 1960s, really,
Oh
in
yeah.
the and so there's no lack of people who have looked at it.
Yeah.
There is less in certain niche areas, like my niche areas and different niche areas, but it's generally from what makes people trust.
Yeah.
Like trying to answer the question, what makes people trust? And if you can figure that one out, then you can figure out how to create and package the message you want to get across so that it's in line with the necessary things that need to be present for somebody to trust it. But in a broad sense, generally right now, we have a massive amount of information sources. But what we don't encourage people do is to seek trusted sources as an active process. People do it as a passive process, right? When as I like to say, when the shizzy hits the fizzy and the world goes pear-shaped,
Mm-hmm.
you and I both go to a certain social
Mm-hmm.
media feed.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
not going to be the same, right? That's passive behavior because that's where we by default go to figure out what's going on. For some, it's ctv.ca, some it's cbc.ca, some it's the emergency feed on Twitter, some it is going to be a Facebook group, some it might be the religious faith group. What they go somewhere for that information. Very few people, and in my research, very few people line up the government institutions as one of those immediate trusted sources. And as we saw with the set of decisions in the pandemic, and OECD actually just came out with a recent report on the trust in government institutions. And it's at best at a plurality and it's trending down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Which
Yeah.
does
Yeah. I
not
saw that.
bode well in my world of risk and crisis communications
Yeah.
when a plurality of the population does not see the government institution
Yeah.
as a valid, trusted source of information.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because if they receive that information, what the individual is going to do is they're going to verify it elsewhere.
Yeah.
They're going to trust, they're not going to trust but verify. They're going to verify and then trust.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
that time lag, and depending on where they go, in today's certain
Oh.
voices that are present, right?
Oh. Oh. Yeah.
Where they go
Yeah. Yeah.
to get the validation
Yeah.
may completely dismiss the message that I'm trying to get across. So
Yeah.
I'm knee deep in trying to figure this out, to develop a methodology to say, hey, when the city of Toronto needs to get something through to the people of Toronto,
Mm-hmm.
right now, a certain percentage of your population frame it as the mayor speaking, and then they frame it through their political view of the mayor.
Yes.
That influences people's decision whether to
Yes.
listen
Yes.
to the Toronto police, for example. And then there's a certain set of the population who does not have a positive relationship with the Toronto
No.
police force,
Of course.
right?
Yes.
So it doesn't matter what they say. Nobody's going to listen, or those certain segment of the population that listens. So we're in a very challenging position
Yeah.
where I'm a firm believer, and everything that I've read and have done tells me that trust is earned.
Yeah.
Over a longitudinal period, and it's lost on a singular event.
As you were talking, it raises some questions, or insights, or concerns, considerations, my usual phrase, in my mind. The two of us, okay, I'm going to go out on a limb and project the fact that I'm not normal onto you, because you're not normal either.
Nope.
Well, let's look at our backgrounds. And we don't have the same backgrounds, but we have done academic research. right? And the research that we did put us into a certain framework about how to handle information. Right? A research-based approach, automatically, when you receive information, we often enough question the validity of that information.
Mhm.
Right? And that questioning is often enough based on intellectual curiosity or just plain curiosity. And so what we would often enough do is, I'm projecting, and I'm sure because you did your doctoral work, it's probably no different. You go and find sources that counter what is being said, so that you have a perspective, and then sources that support what is being said. And what is being said that becomes important because it fits my perception of what it is I want to say. So to look at all of the psychology around what I just talked about: curiosity, questioning mode, a perceived approach, and a science. There is, truth. Truth is so multiple that we know that all of these approaches are filters, but they're filters that are pushed, if you will, or driven by curiosity. We want to know more. We want to know more. So it starts almost with a basis of trust. I trust at least the initial source. When I was starting doctoral work, about the time when Noah was building his ark, the approach that it was always suggested to us as newbie, academics, was go take your idea and go to a resource that still exists, but is very rarely used, and that is an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Go to an encyclopedia, and both to find out, at that time, those articles in encyclopedias, whether it's Britannica or the Catholic Encyclopedia, whoever, they were written by prominent scholars in their field. So minimally, you could trust that as the jumping off point. But it wasn't so much to get the insights of the individual who wrote the article. All those articles were followed by bibliographies, extensive bibliographies, which then gave you the option to pick and choose, to validate, verify, question, I don't know, whatever else, whether what you just read was trustworthy or not, or whether you want to take a different tack on it. Now, that is a stream of understanding and knowledge-based decision-making that I don't think is normative, not normal, but normative in the given society. People don't want to be told what to do. They just want a solution. They don't want options. Then it raises other issues when, because of social media, the options, the world of options suddenly opens up. All right. For me, it was a library. That was my option. Okay. For the world now, it's wide open. Right? Whether you do Wikipedia or just do a Google search or whatever, the next thing you know, you have so many resources at your fingertips.
Yeah.
It raises the question, and I can see it. I can see it even in my own mind when I do a Google search on a topic, that when I get 14,000 sources over 15 pages or 20 pages or 30 pages, I go, what the F is this? I don't need.
By the way, most of the people on the first page have paid to be in the first page.
Oh, I know that. I know that. So there are the sponsored ones, and then there are the other ones.
Yeah.
And if you don't know that, automatically you start trusting the people who paid to position themselves on the page. Well, wait a minute. Does that not now raise questions as to what is trustworthy or not? Of course it is. Of course it does. The source is there because they paid for the position. So even there, it raises massive questions. And when we think about it, well, there are so many options that are set up in opposition to what you and I, or me in particular, would be used to as a source of information. That those sources are no longer considered, I don't know, valid, trustworthy, or the only option, if not criticized or questioned.
Yeah. Yeah. And the voices are, the voices are so, it's not just the number of voices, it's the loudness of the voices now.
Yeah.
And what I mean about loudness in social media terms, it's not the all caps.
No.
It's the, I have 1.7 million followers, so I must be trustworthy.
Therefore, I'm an influencer.
Right. I have 596 followers on Twitter.
Yeah.
So if I say something, even though it is well within my wheelhouse and I've got a decade of research to back it up, I don't get the exposure and I don't get the same nod and belief as somebody who says the same thing, who has 1.7, or says a counterpoint who has 1.7 million followers.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So we have, just by default and not by, and I would argue by ignorance, we've equated trust and popularity in social media. And so somebody who is popular is therefore trustworthy, because if so many people like them, they must be valid, true.
Exactly.
And somebody that I could look to. Right. And what you get is you get a lot of people who are popular in their capitalistic endeavor, which is whether you're dancing or you're painting yourself or whatever it is you're doing on social media to get popularity, you're selling something, right? And so when you're selling something, it's all about marketing, right? And this is why I have turned my work is trying to persuade risk communicators that you are in a marketing business.
Yes.
That marketing principles need to be applied to your decision to deliver important messaging to the population. You are market. And so the same principles of marketing, of carving out your target market, understanding them, going where they are, speaking to them. Like I've said, if you're the Toronto Fire Department and you're not on TikTok, then you're not doing it right.
That's right.
Because I don't care. Nobody cares whether you like TikTok.
No.
If that's where your target population sits, aka if you're in the public sector and you serve the population, if your population is on TikTok, if they're on, I don't care what you think about the spaceman, everybody's on X. So if you're not on X, delivering your message, you're intentionally choosing not to serve a factor of the population because you have a, as you said, a lens or a bias towards something related to that. And I have biases. Obviously, I have political views. I have cultural, ideological views. And this is why I love hypothesis in scientific research, because that's where I express without question my absolute bias intentions in the research that I do, because this is what I think I will find. Because based upon the research, but and it's back to what you said before, are people looking for facts which they can then use to make informed decisions, or are they looking for answers?
Yes.
Because those are two distinct different things. You and I will look for facts. Because of just the academic process and the cycle that we've lived through.
Right.
And I would argue decades of business experience will do the same thing to you. You're looking for facts. Just because you say it's true doesn't make it true.
No.
Right?
No. Right.
Just because I say something is true doesn't make it true.
No, exactly.
Exactly. Which is hard for the millennial and the younger generation to understand. And this is part of that difficult in communication, because, people say, well, I'm saying this is true, so it must be true. Well, it's that old adage that we used to get in fights with when I was kids. Your opinion can actually be wrong.
Yes.
But people would say, it's my opinion, it can't be wrong. No, in fact, your opinion can very much quite easily be incorrect and wrong.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. You introduce a whole range of topics here. One is on the marketing side, what organizations, especially those who are more traditional in their structured approach to things. That's a nice way of saying governments, for
Yeah.
example. Right?
Yeah.
And government agencies, fire departments among them. They haven't quite caught on to the necessity of positioning.
Yep.
You've got to position yourself inside of a population. Yes, you can dismiss the process in any way you want, but you got to position yourself. Now, it also raises the issue, because you introduced this, that in positioning yourself, you're choosing several channels to do that, but then your position inside of those channels is based on popularity and numbers, right? Not for anything. A fire department is not going to have 1.5 million followers anywhere, unless it's the annual naked fireman calendar. That's sorry, but that's the level.
It is what it is, right?
It is what it is. It's the level of communication that's accepted on things like TikTok and X and whoever. And so what makes something popular makes it important. Or if I don't want to use the word important, makes it relevant to the receiving population. Yeah. Maybe it's not about importance. Maybe it's about relevance. And that gets into two-sided, two sides of understanding. It's the message that has one sense or delivers one sense, but it's also my receptivity to the message, which is my biases, my approaches, my view of the world. You can throw in politics, you could throw anything you want in there, in terms of what is my POV, point of view, right? Yours, mine, whoever. We all have specific points of view that are ours. Some of those POVs are collectively accepted, all right? Others are specific and owned. I don't care what you think, okay? And I don't care what your approach is, kind of things. And then there are others where, no matter how neutral a source might be, it actually, it depends on what it's trying to convey in its neutrality. If positioning is marked by the numbers of people who follow you that make you the influencer, there it is in social media right there, then your content, you might be neutral, but your content might not garner any following.
Yeah.
And your position, no matter how validly neutral or trustworthy from a content point of view, has been vitiated.
Right. And I'll give you a prime example of how positioning can transform images. I don't know if you're a regular on X, but you know of Ryanair.
Yes.
Okay. The world's best airline just asked them. Okay. Their Twitter or X handler is a savage. Unapologetically, like, just right in the face of everybody. But because that's how the platform is best used,
yes,
they take on that.
Yes.
Like when somebody says Ryanair, you're the best airline in the world, they answer, Bob, you're not getting a free flight.
No. Yes.
Or when somebody says it's the worst airline, I'm never coming back, they're like, Rachel, you'll be back, and you'll be back.
Yes, it's a challenge.
Or somebody said they booked a window seat and they showed a picture of the door they were next to, right? So Ryanair replied with the same photo and circled the tiny little window in the door.
And said, there's a window. What the hell's your problem?
Right. But because they adopted the attitude that was specific to the social media platform they were on,
Right.
they're an airline, but they've garnered a massive
Yes.
following of people who just check the hilarity of their Twitter.
Yeah.
Another great example is Ottawa Public Health.
Uh-huh.
Throughout the pandemic, I don't know who it was, but they deserved a freaking award for the hilarious one-liners that they would say about people in the pandemic. But by doing so, they increased the frequency at which their message was seen in the population because they adopted one hilarity, funny, humor, something, whatever the platform called
Right.
for,
Yep.
to bring in audiences, right? So it's about, yeah, you got to position yourself. But if you jump on Twitter, right? If I jump on TikTok right now and have 2 followers, now I have to get a city to listen to me.
Yeah.
It's not a very quick, it's not a long process, but you have to adopt to it. And it's hard for bureaucrats to put together that type of thing. You know, getting 5 firemen to dance in line to a song out front of the fire hall will get 20,000 likes.
Exactly.
Right. And then those 20,000 of those 5,000 are going to follow you. And when your next message is about the safety of smoke detectors, you just reached 5,000 people you wouldn't have reached before.
Right.
And this is the idea of positioning is so important.
Yep.
But understanding that you have to, the work is up to you to do it. And it's back to the marketing principles, right? Your target market.
Yep.
Like you said, your frame.
Yep.
I have to create my preparedness message knowing what my attitude of my recipients are.
Yep.
Because I need to know the lens through which they're going to look at my message so that I create it in a way that it doesn't get binned. Right? I don't need it binned. I don't need it trashed. I need it listened to. So I got to understand if my listeners or the people I'm trying to listen, you know, it's like if I'm a Democratic governor speaking to a Republican state, largely Republican part of the population, I can't just deliver the same message.
No,
it won't work.
No, right.
I have to change the message.
Right.
But not understanding that and grasping that is a failure of understanding marketing. And I don't care whether you're, and I said this to, I was a guest on a podcast interview earlier this week with somebody in the security industry, IT security, you know, CrowdStrike, may have heard of it.
Yeah.
But I was telling him, I'm like, okay, the first time you interact with your corporate staff, when you need them to do something, they're not going to know who you are, and they're going to ignore your email from the IT department. You must shut down, restart. They're just going to ignore you. I said, you need to use marketing. You need to get out there. You need to meet the people. You need to put yourself in front of the corporation. You need to offer free lunch and learns about how to use a VPN to protect your kids' console game. Like, make yourself useful, valuable, and trustworthy in the eyes of people, so that when you do send the CrowdStrike message, you have a higher degree of likelihood that you'll have compliance in your target population.
Yeah,
it's marketing.
Yeah, you can almost visualize CrowdStrike. I mean, how did we actually receive the information? Words, descriptions, descriptions. Not lightning coming out of a cloud that's striking the entire system and shutting it down. Okay, I'm not a cartoonist, but I do like to doodle. I like to doodle, and you know, all of this reminds me of 2 things, and I've spoken to you. You and I talked about this before. First of all, there's the gonzo journalism. You know, this is 1960s, 1970s stuff. You know, gonzo journalism is throw the mud and see where it lands.
Yeah.
All right. Content, who cares? Who cares? It's not content. It's who's going to dust them off and take the mud away. All right. And they're the ones who are responding. You want a response. You don't necessarily want acceptance, but that response is step one.
Engagement.
There you go. Engagement. The other is and you hit the nail on the head when you said platform determines content.
Yeah. Yeah.
What you choose as your channel will determine not just how you deliver, but what you deliver. All right. So Ryanair, what are they actually doing? They're being funny as hell, sarcastic as a bunch of SOBs that they can be.
Yep.
They are ripping people to shreds, and they're still popular, if not more so.
More, yeah.
Because you just described it. I mean, what have they achieved by doing that? They have achieved more following. And why are people following? They don't give a flying crap why people are following. It's about the numbers. Okay. We now have more people following us because we just tore, Muriel's head off about that picture she sent us regarding her window. Hey, Muriel, you had a window. You didn't like it. You know where you can go?
Yeah. Yeah.
And people are going, whoa, how dare you? Yet they're waiting for the next one.
Yep. Yep.
And so, without being a pedant about it, this is Marshall McLuhan all over. This is, the medium is the message. And what he was saying was, it's not the content, it's not the words you use, it's the channel you use. It's not what you're trying to say, it's how you are going to say it. And that is what attracts people.
Yep.
Raises massive issues around what's trustworthy, because now you're shooting for a response that is different from talking about how great you are as an airline.
Yep.
Traditionally, you would say, look at us, we're wonderful, isn't this fantastic, so on and so forth. Whereas Ryanair is saying, I really don't give a damn.
Yep. You're coming back to us anyhow.
That's right. And on top of it, you're going to follow us on X.
Yep.
And that's all we want.
Right. And because when you follow me on X and marketing tells you, the next time I go to Expedia.com to book a plane ticket and Ryanair pops up,
there I am.
There's a familiar thing. You know what? These guys are hilarious. I'm going to give them a shot. I've now got a ticket sold.
Exactly.
Right? And when you have a very serious message to get across that's very timely, my argument, and I continue to argue this, is that is only effective if you've established the trusted relationship in advance.
Yeah.
And so that I established the trust through funny tweets. I established the trust through dancing funny rhythms on TikTok. I do it because of crazy reels on Instagram. I'm building that level of familiarity between you and I as something to provide value. And there's a marketer that says, in a boxing analogy, it should be jab, 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 hook, which means I'm going to give you 3 pieces of goodies free of charge. And then I'm going to ask you for something.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to repeat that. And it's some people say it's 6 to 1, 3 to 1, whatever. But the point is that I create that engagement.
Yes.
And I create communication, which you and I know actually requires 2 people.
Yes.
You're not communicating with somebody when you send out a social media post.
No.
You're communicating when they respond and you engage.
Yes. Yes.
And building that trust and building that regular engagement then sets the conditions to where it's a higher likelihood when this happens. And a prime example, a buddy of mine used to run the Provincial Emergency Operations Center on Vancouver Island. And they hired a new social media guru, just some young individual who got it, who understood how to truly use it. And the individual started off with saying, hey, listen, I need $1,000 budget, $20 a week. And so they ran contests. So 3 or 4 times a week, they gave out pieces of information. And then once every Friday, they ran a gift card contest for a $20 Starbucks gift card. They exponentially grew their following on
Mm-hmm.
Vancouver Island
Mm-hmm.
because of something, a very small engagement, a very
Right.
small offer, a very cost-effective offer.
Mm-hmm.
People were engaging. They asked question, we answered. They asked question, we answered.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We asked them questions. They answered it. We said yes or no. Did you get it right? We liked it. We did all the proper engagements.
Right.
And you exponentially grew the number of social media followers on your emergency operations feed.
Yep.
And then when there's wildfires,
Yes.
these people are not necessarily all, but they're more than likely going to go to you and not CTV, which is talking about clouds and smoke and cars driving out and what the prime minister's saying and what the premier's saying and what expert XYZ is saying, and not what you and neighborhood A should be doing to get to neighborhood C.
Yeah.
That's not going to ever come across the media, right?
Yeah.
It's too general. It's too vague. It's too large swath.
Yeah. You know, a lot of this has been around for some time, but has been lost in buried in what I would call some fairly traditional approaches to communication.
Yep.
You know, when Walter Cronkite, and I am giving my age away, used to end his newscast every night with "That's the way it is."
Yep.
You go, okay. He had been at that time, obviously he's long since dead, criticized for how dare you know, make a statement like that. And it actually garnered for him the trust of the American people.
Yep.
All the other broadcasts, all the other news feed media, everybody went to Walter Cronkite. And you think, we're talking the 60s and 70s here, right? We're talking about somebody who would show minimum zero. He only showed emotion once in his entire career. Who would give you the truth, and you accepted it, and ended each day with, "That's the way it is," not the way it was. It is. This is here. This is now. Now, when you think about that news media medium at that time, we're talking about the first time that war actually was videoed or seen in American living rooms. Okay, we're talking Vietnam War, but it was the first time where Americans not in a movie, not John Wayne. It was the first time they actually saw the reality of war. In their
almost real time in their living room.
Exactly. You saw this young man carrying a gun in a jungle, sweating. They did not show people dead or dying. They stopped there. There was a code of ethics around that. But they showed people in war, in battle. And it blew, people probably didn't understand this, but it blew Americans out of their complacency about communication. They saw something. And a man at the end of that broadcast said, "That's the way it is." It led to, you know, people like Johnson not coming back for a second term. And people like Nixon signing the treaty.
Yeah, and it gets back to what we said earlier about, are you looking for the facts, or are you looking for an answer and what it means? Because, and this is something journalism generally struggles with now, is the Walter Cronkite just told you it is what it is, and here it is. Right? Nobody's asking you whether you like it or you agree with it.
No,
that's not the conversation.
That's not the conversation.
Here it is.
Yep.
Far too often now, what we have, in my mind, is a loss of raw presentation of an occurrence. So when the U.S. presidential candidate gets shot, you watch MSNBC, read the Washington Post, and watch Fox News, and there were 3 distinctly different events that occurred that day.
Yeah.
Right? We've wandered away from delivering the facts and allowing the population
Yes.
to determine what that means and what the likely future events will be.
Yes.
To this is what this means, and this is the future events that are coming. And we've skipped that point, and it's back to the idea of, and I know I'm going to light a fire under some people, but I don't think the general perception is that we can trust the public to think on their own anymore.
Yes. Yes.
That people are no longer intelligent, have the capacity to make intelligent decisions on their own, and they need to be told what everything means for them.
Yes. 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 Oh, wow. I mean, we get back to that whole struggle around the word and the concept of trust.
Yeah.
It's both that we as a source of information can no longer be trusted, or the sources of information can no longer be trusted, but the sources of information no longer trust the receivers of information.
Yeah.
The population is no longer trustworthy. So when we think about it, and we think about the divide, it's the trust chasm between those who no longer trust the sources, government, for example, and government who actually doesn't trust the population or the receivers of information. And it raises some massively critical issues where we say, is the government actually doing stuff for us, or are they doing stuff to us? Big difference between those two prepositions.
Oh, it's huge.
Right?
Huge.
And we're not just talking about, oh, well, there's so much tax and all that. But please, that's just money. I'm talking about, why should I trust the system when the system consistently fails to produce?
Yeah.
TTC is a system run by government structures. And on Monday morning at 10 minutes after 6, after it started, a huge portion of it stopped.
Yeah.
Now, what is it that I need to trust in a situation like that? Right now, I trust that it's not going to work.
Yeah. Now is that an expectation?
Well,
and do we have reasonable expectations of service?
Well, I mean, if it happens consistently and frequently,
yep.
All right.
I can talk about Ottawa's LRT if it's the same.
Exactly. And if it happens that, we know it's construction season, but why is there construction on every single frickin' road in the city or in the region or in the area? And you go, does anybody know what's really going on? Now we raise the question.
Yeah.
Is there anybody not so much in control? I think we gave that word up long ago. There is no control, but I suspect most people in an everyday way are questioning whether they can trust everything around them that they should have expected to be at least functioning, if not functioning properly, but function, damn it.
And then when you realize that the cost to entry, to use an economic term, is so prohibitive that the TTC shall never be replaced by anything else.
No, can't be.
So the Torontonians can't get rid of TTC, close down the subway lines, close down the bus routes, and let a contract for somebody else to do it.
No, it can't be privatized.
There is no incentive for the TTC to be reliable.
Right.
The problem with Ottawa, like the concept we built here for the LRT is brilliant. It's exactly what the city needs. It was horribly executed. It continues to be a nightmarish struggle to get any of the line extensions to meet any consistent deadlines.
Yes.
Whatsoever.
Yes.
When the service goes down, the replacement service is
Horrendous.
horrendous.
That's a nice way of putting it.
To the point where, like you said, if I said to the people of Ottawa that we expect OC Transpo, our version of the TTC,
Right.
to be on time, plus or minus 5 minutes, 90% of the time, a measurement tool.
Yes.
And we're going to release the daily results of our compliance. And we measure, and then we have consequences for it.
Yep.
You start to put a measure of confidence. So it's okay that the TCC broke.
Yes.
Because nothing's perfect. But you have an expectation of 90%. My problem with that is I think people have 100% expectation of 100% working critical infrastructure across the entire city.
Yes.
The city of Calgary faced a problem with water.
Oh, yeah.
People don't accept that that's a possibility. It could happen to any of us. Imagine if the sewers stopped working, we had to abandon those for a couple of weeks.
That's right.
Imagine that world, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it may be. What happens if Pearson International Airport gets taken offline for a couple of weeks? What does the city of Toronto look like? Like, those are all possible things that could occur.
Of course they are. Yep.
Their frequency is so low, they'd be within normal operation parameters. But everybody has this expectation of 100%. Like, everybody gets up every morning. And if you look around your condo or your apartment or building, wherever you live, all of the systems that you magically expect to work 100% of the time. And then when they fail to do so, we get angry without understanding that they break. But if TTC hits 60% on time target 50% of the time, and nothing ever happens to anybody, and the head still gets $410,000 or whatever their salary is.
Yep.
Where's the incentive to improve the delivery?
Interesting. What keeps coming to my mind as we're talking is the word consistency. And I think there is an inverse proportion. If the system in any way functions moderately consistently, even moderately, doesn't have to be 100% perfect. And it does so over a period of time that gives us comfort. Here's the term. Then when it does break down, we could say, oh, isn't that too bad? We still trust the system.
Yep.
But when the consistency becomes the problem, okay, the inverse proportion trust then goes down as inconsistency goes up, to the point where you reverse the trust factor. I actually trust that when I go in at 6 o'clock in the morning, when it just starts, something is going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not looking for perfection.
No.
There is no such thing. I'm not that insane, or well, I can be, but I'm not that out of it. But the very fact that it's so inconsistent in the service it provides that you begin to judge it.
Yep.
I am more than prepared, and the Ottawa transport system is no different, right? On paper, it's brilliant. Operationally, it's insane.
Yeah.
Okay. It just does not work. And so you look at it and you say, the service being provided has been eroded to the point where I have more confidence in it falling apart than I have confidence in it actually working.
And it is here. One thing I will say is that part of the problem that the population here had with the failure of the LRT was the fact that Ottawa is actually a very well-run city. Everything else works really well, on time, on target, from plowing to mowing to garbage to bylaw to, like, the city is really, really well run.
Mm-hmm.
So when something doesn't work, it is an anomaly. It's
Yes.
outside of the norm. It
Yeah.
attracts a disproportionate amount of attention. You know, the fact that it was a couple $1 billion project also doesn't hurt when it goes completely
Yeah.
off the wire.
Yeah.
And then when you find out there was a whole bunch of bad deeds by the very important people like the mayor and everybody else involved in it, really kind of sours the pot. But
Yes.
people we actually are fortunate here in this city to live in a very well-run city.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it's an attribute to the people who crank it out every day. Like,
Yeah.
we'll complain about a pothole here and there, but they're
Oh no.
pretty darn great at potholes around here.
Yeah.
Like,
I think we complain more about the streets, not the potholes.
right? Like we have congestion.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But congestion is a function of we're out of space to expand highways. Like, I can't make we can't put in a toll highway outside of the city. Doesn't make any sense. And our highway that runs through downtown or across the city, at some points they were able to squeeze a 4th lane in, but then they have to squeeze it back to 3 lanes in some neighborhoods. It goes from 4 to 3 to 4 to 3, depending on the amount of space that's there. Like, they're done. They can't expand it.
Yeah.
And you can't, by increasing speed, you don't increase throughput. We all know that in transportation logistics. But the idea being is people understand that it's beyond the capability of the city to fix the congestion.
Yep.
Right? Something different has to be done. This is why the LRT was celebrated as a great idea.
Yeah.
This is how they destroy that idea. What do? So the end station for the second version of the LRT is 1 street over from my main street. There's no parking.
Sorry.
There's no parking at the LRT station.
Sorry.
Okay. Everybody that gets off the LRT at the end of the line has to get on a bus. The bus takes you 1 street over to the massive parking lot. And that was okay. It's like, imagine, and I use this all the time because my brother used to live in Mississauga, the GO station in Mississauga.
Oh yes.
6, 8 stories of concrete parking garage.
Yes.
Because what people want to do is they want to drive to the train.
Yeah.
Take the train into town, because nobody wants to drive into downtown Toronto.
Nobody wants to drive into town.
But when I get off work, I've got a myriad of things that I want to run around and do.
Right. Yeah.
Ottawa says no. Righteously, we're telling you, we want you to take the bus from home to the train, take the train.
Yeah.
And in reverse, when everybody's like, no, that's not how I want to use it. So they're intentionally designing it to make it exceptionally difficult for the population to adopt, which is being built as a great transportation system. So how do you build trust in a population?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When you're spending billions of dollars of taxpayer money on a system that they're making it intentionally difficult for the population to use. And just like you said, take the bus, but I'm only sending one every 25 minutes.
Yes.
The train runs every 5 in rush hour.
Yes.
But the bus to feed it will only be once every
20.
Oh, by the way,
minutes. Yeah.
The train holds 8 bus loads.
That's right. And there's only one bus coming.
And there's only one bus coming from the different areas.
Oh yeah. So, no. Listen, you're talking to the convicted here.
Oh, like when I used to take the bus years ago when I was at Carleton University, we would regularly drive by bus stops full of people because the bus was packed and they couldn't take anybody else.
No.
The bus just drove right on by full.
Yeah, no, that is a norm. That's a normative customer service metric here in Toronto with the public trans. I mean, they don't even numbers anymore.
They don't even try.
No, they don't. They don't. But again, we get back to that whole issue of consistency. When it becomes consistently negative, we end up with people now trusting that it won't work. So we've reversed this whole notion of trust from being positive to becoming negative, right? And it's one of those, it's a tricky moment, if you want. Ryanair is going out there tearing the heads off chickens, okay, and doing it in public. All right. The impact is to garner numbers, to get people to follow them. All right. It's not to be nice.
No.
As a matter of fact, just the opposite. And they have a reputation of not being nice. But
yeah,
hey, they're cheap, they're somewhat convenient, so on and so forth. That having been said, when we have a predisposed approach to niceness, we expect niceness from various structures. All right. Then we get into when that falls apart because of consistent bad behavior, if you will. And there's no reason to trust. And by the way, we're talking about public organizations, public transit to government, so on and so forth. That's no different in a grocery store. Right? If I go to a grocery store and they are consistently putting rotten fruit on the shelves, why would I continue going to the grocery store?
but
right?
You have choice in the
Oh,
commercial industry.
I agree. You have an alternative. Yes, we do. In a grocery store, we have alternatives. But from a customer service point of view, where competition at a corporate level is so high in the world of grocery retail period, they have to make sure that they are consistent from a quality point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It doesn't matter that there's another grocery store down the street. That actually is the problem, that there is another grocery store down the street.
Or that's the incentive.
The incentive is, I want you here to come through our doors. Now, when you think of public services, there is no alternative. So they don't have to try.
No.
They just have to put it out there, and either you buy it or you don't. And if you don't buy it, they shrug and walk away and say, too bad, so sad.
Or you have to buy it because you can't hook your house up to somebody else's power grid or somebody else's water distribution system.
Well,
or
no, you could, but then you could potentially go to jail. But that's a different issue.
Right, but no, like
no, I agree.
The utilities to service your house are rightly a monopoly because of the cost and barriers to entry. It doesn't make any sense to have anything other than that.
No.
But what we don't do in the public sector is hold our monopolies to a standard and then penalize them when they failed to meet the standard.
That's right. And it is an ongoing issue that we all face, because we're looking at the context of our conversations is by and large preparedness, and the challenge of us as individuals in our households to be prepared raises massive issues around truth, trust, trustworthiness, consistency, and whether we buy into what we're told. All right.
Yep.
One of the challenges of preparedness is that responsibility is ours, mine, the household.
Yep.
Right. In one of the negatives around that is that we're also a culture of I'm going to call it surfeit. We actually have too many options. We're too comfortable.
Well,
yeah. Don't tell me that I have to make a decision. Just tell me what to do.
Yes.
Okay? And our whole education system is geared that way. All right. You have to get the right answer, which means I'm telling you what to do.
Right.
In order to get the right answer. So that creates a culture around, issues of responsibility. we are now adults and I'm responsible for the life and well-being of my family. I need to be prepared, and so on and so forth. Why? Because the world is becoming crazier and crazier, and we get floods because it rains. It gives us a week's worth of rain in 2 days, as happened in Toronto with floods everywhere. So I need to be prepared. I can't drive up the Don Valley, at the end of the day when we've had this kind of rain, because it is now 5 feet, 6 feet of water.
Yep.
Okay. My car does not float.
Does not ford or float that kind of water. Yeah, no, exactly. Yep.
And yet, what is even more interesting, and you'd almost have to ask, who's going to get the Darwin Award this week? You have to ask, why is that car sitting in the middle of the water on the Don Valley when it was obvious that they could not pass through? Yet
And
somebody tried.
somebody gave it a shot thinking they could, and they
Yeah.
couldn't. And this is why Darwin needs to stay alive. The idea and the concept that we need to make people.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when you said about not making decisions, I argue that people don't want to be responsible for their outcomes.
Well, consequences, yes.
The consequence. I don't want to have to make the decision, because
Yeah.
if I make the choice,
Yes.
I then own the outcome.
You have to. Yes.
But that's not a positive thing. So if
No.
I tell you I don't want to make the decision, I just want to be told what to do, then if I follow what you tell me to do and anything less than uber positive happens, the responsibility transfers from me to you.
Exactly.
You're the one who told me what to do.
Exactly.
Right? We lost the idea of accountability.
Yep.
And owning your outcomes. And this is why I hamper that. The number one question in preparedness is to ask yourself, who is responsible for your outcomes?
Yep.
Full stop.
Yep.
If that's not you, I wish you the best of day.
Exactly.
You can go on being a professional victim, have a great time.
Yep.
But it's all rooted in understanding personal responsibility. That, like, for example, I'll give you one note that when we talk about when we had young kids in school, you and I don't have young kids in school anymore, but at one point there were young kids in school. It is our responsibility, I argue, to understand and know what the education system's emergency response plan is.
Yes.
I'm not asking whether you like it. I'm not asking whether you agree with it.
No.
I'm saying, what is the response? Yes. And I give a prime example of where I live. The elementary school and the senior school are both driven on the same bus at different times.
Mm.
So if the city had to evacuate the schools and return them home, there's only enough buses to do one at a time.
Yes.
Who gets priority?
That's right. Sophie's choice.
So the question for parents is, it's your responsibility to ask that question. It's your responsibility to know that, and then use that to make an informed decision. If the school is going to deposit your child at the end of the road, but not the older one, and you've got one car, now you're going to go get the older one because the young one is being taken care of. Like, this is how you make informed decisions. But if you just say, tell me what to do when there's an emergency at the school, the elementary school will tell you what to do. Then the senior school will tell you what to do. What choice do you have? So it's about understanding that it's your responsibility to find, as we said, doing the government of Canada phrase, circling back to the fact, what is the Walter Cronkite would say, that's the way it is.
Yes.
What it is, what it is, but what is it? Like, go find out the piece of information, right?
Yes.
Like, you have a responsibility to seek accurate information.
Yes. Yeah.
The world is trying to give you accurate information in that massive noise of noise.
Yes.
But it is your responsibility to go seek sources of accurate information.
You know what would be an interesting study, possibly for your undergraduate students, and that is to do a statistical analysis of curiosity in the culture. how curious are people? Not questioning, because everybody questions everything now because everybody's pissed off. It's more a case of what constitutes curiosity. Are people curious enough in terms of responsibility that they would go and ask the senior school people about my son Johnny, or the elementary school, lower school, about my daughter Mary?
Yep.
You know, are you? We put it in terms of responsibility, and it is. But there is that level of curiosity that we assume the system is going to take care of it, and I don't have to do anything. So that's the other side of trust. We trust certain systems to replace us.
Oh, right? across the spectrum.
Yeah, totally.
We used to build our own houses. We used to grow our own food.
No, we don't do any of that. But
right, so we transfer that.
I want to end on something that's probably going to be controversial here. This has been fascinating.
Good.
And, it picks up on the drama, political melodrama, I think is the better term, that's occurring in our neighbors to the south. And I at first thought, okay, there's a lot of false, well, of course, there's a lot of false information, fake news, or whatever the hell you want to call it. I really don't give a damn. But what I found interesting about it was it's almost a play that could be written by Shakespeare. Fascinating. And timing is everything. For example, Biden made it very clear, I am not going to resign. I am not going to run.
Yeah.
I don't care what you think. And of course, Democrats being typical, and I love Democrats because if they can dynamite their own position, they will. They're famous for that. It's that whole liberal, it's all about values. When I go, no, it's about whether you're Ryanair or not.
Yeah.
Okay? It's about emotional response. It's not about values or, politics is a highly volatile, emotion-driven approach to things. It's an experience that has nothing to do with policies, right? Period. I don't give a damn who you are. Right. And it's the constant people on the left who feel that the world needs to make decisions based on ideas. Really, nobody makes, from a political point of view, nobody gives a damn. Right? They don't care. They want to know who's up on the stage and who's going to entertain me. The political process has become more entertainment than it has anything else, which is interesting. And I'm not saying it's good. Because there's a part of me that does want to know, well, what the hell are you going to do if you become the government? But then there's another part of me that says, wow, the process is just a shit show. This is really interesting. And so we get through, the truth behind all this is pure speculation. So we get the wounded savior, who's bleeding from the ear, right, at a rally in Pennsylvania, who obviously is going to be nominated because that wasn't even a question.
No.
But it's the martyr syndrome as part of that. There is no way you could have opposition because now he's sacrificing his life for the country. Okay, fine. I don't care whether you believe it or not. That's irrelevant. It's the positioning. It's the on the stage, what's going on. This is Hamlet. This is Othello. This is, really fascinating. Then after that's over and he gets into the position of being the nominee for that party, Biden's replaced.
Yep.
And I go, initially I thought, damn, that was pretty nasty. And then I thought, oh, they timed it just right.
Yeah. Got to take the wind out of the sails.
It's pure theater.
Yep. It's all theater.
It's all theater. It's something that Shakespeare would probably look at and go, I got to write a play about that.
Because when you look at the timing of the polls and the bump
Oh,
that he got after being shot. Something had to be done to change the conversation, to change the narrative.
Exactly.
And the only way to do that was to change it to something completely different. And I think there's an old argument that said it all started going downhill in Canada when you put cameras in the House of Commons. I would argue that's probably contributing. Sure, I don't think that's the whole start point.
No.
But in a world of social media, in a world of sound bites, this is where we are. This is
yeah.
You know, I think I don't know if we're long past the point where we can sit and have an adult conversation and ask the general population what it is that you want your government to do for you. And as such, are you willing to pay the bill from your personal paycheck?
No.
That's the question to ask. And we don't ask that question anymore. So it's theater. It's gone exactly down the road you've said. It's all theater. It's all acting. It's all a play with a very set, specific script. And 10 years ago, even in the United States of America, God love my American friends, they had confidence in their electoral system.
Yes, definitely.
Up until 2 years ago, Canadians had the same. So I think, to put my to end it on my tinfoil hat idea, I think that's the last institution we have. When we lose confidence in our electoral system, that is the last one to go before we turn very much into the theater in the South.
Okay, I don't have that same prediction or sense, but I'm old and I'll be dead by the time all that happens. I'm going to end with a quote. And Eric Hoffer was a philosopher and an author. And he was what they called a street philosopher. He didn't have a massive education, but he spoke for the everyday average person. And one of his quotes that I really like is this: "Hatred is the most accessible and comprehensive of all the unifying agents." Not a motivator, but a unifier.
Unifier, yes. Nothing brings people together than hate.
Mass movements can rise and spread without a belief in the good or God. But never without a belief in the devil. And that is what moves people.
Yes.
And we got about half a minute. Some of my favorite characters when I used to teach literature at the university, coming out of Shakespeare, was not Othello. He was freaking boring. I just couldn't stand him. Hated that play. But Iago, ooh, the evil character is so engaging, so interesting. Iago, not Othello. Right? Macbeth, not Duncan. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, you forget the witches. That's just, by the way. But Macbeth, brilliant stuff. Not Hamlet. Now, this is the strange one, and this is the last. Hamlet's one of those strange plays that I actually consider a comedy, not a tragedy. And I know I'm very unusual that way because I just think it's too weird a play. But the really interesting characters are the outliers, not the central characters. The outliers are almost the reason for the play. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, Laertes, even Laertes' father. They're weird, they're strange, and I think that's what the play is actually about. What is the edge? Right. And on that happy note, I wish you a great afternoon.
All right, you too. I'm gonna go play some whack-a-mole.
Oh, don't put it that way. All right. Now, what am I supposed to